Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is BryanCPSteele, and I will be your nerd today and every other day that you watch one of my silly little shows. I hope everybody's having a great day, great week. We're going to get into the week in Bryan here in a second, because it's been a good one, an eventful one. Good, eventful? Good, eventful? I don't know. And we got a little bit to talk about. But I did want to take just a brief moment to thanks everybody for all the engagement on last week's episode. I know last week's episode was focused on Warzone Eternal, which really has a big audience because it's an upcoming game, and it has, that license has an existing fan base, and there's a lot of people who are first coming to the channel. So I want to say a couple of things to the newcomers. First and foremost, thank you. Thank you for coming, and thanks for engaging in conversation. The comment section is my favorite thing about the YouTube channel, and it is a fantastic. It's a fantastic way for me to hear from the people who I'm trying to reach, or the people who I'm trying to give information to. It's nice to hear back, which is also why, if you are not aware, if you're new to the channel and you haven't gone back and watched any of the old ones yet, you should. I hold a monthly YouTube, a monthly comment raffle. Basically, all of the videos from that month, I throw everybody's name, every individual comment thread starter into the randomizer, and I'm pretty sure the name changes every time. But the super randominator, and it spits out a particular comment and says, "This guy's the winner," or "This gal's the winner," and I send out a package. I actually have February's right there. Boop. But it is going all the way to Norway. I have to fill out a custom form for it first, so I haven't had a chance to mail it yet. So I apologize, Stern. I haven't got that out yet. Or Ola. Us Ola. Yeah. But I send a package out, and the comment raffles, with the exception of the special Christmas package that I did, which was giant and huge and full of special stuff, I basically put together a package of cool gamerific things from around the studio. Whether it's signed products, 3D printed figures that either I've painted, maybe I haven't. Sometimes I'll put painted figures in there randomly. A lot of if any of our sponsors send us cool stuff, I'll throw those in the package. Basically, you get kind of a little care package that says, "Hey, thanks for watching, thanks for commenting, thanks for being a part of the Tales from a Professional Nerd family." Today I want to thank all those. Last week's video has got a lot of views. And it's done very, very well for my optics, but very well for my the engagement. It's got a lot of comments, a lot of actual discussion back and forth. The February, February, because that was the January one back behind me. Yeah. So February, the comment raffle, I'm gonna have a lot of contenders to throw into the randominator. And I'm really excited about that. It's I like the channel. I like the fact that it's growing, and I like the fact that as a community, I very rarely have to police any of the comments. I don't have to go in there and be like, "Hey, be nice," you guys really do a good job. And I am going to go ahead and take a very, very brief moment to thank a particular, actually related to one of the sponsors, the channel. So this is not a monetized channel. We are not big enough to make any actual money on this. So I take time out of my workday to film these, to set up the sponsors, to set up the interviews and things. And sometimes as a freelancer, there are many weeks where I go, I don't have time to do this. It's but I forge on, keep going forward, because the point is trying to make a nice cohesive connection between me and you guys, and give you guys the information that I hope that you enjoy, and maybe possibly may find useful. And occasionally someone thanks the show, kind of basically goes, hey, we're listening, where something gets purchased off of the show's Amazon wish list, the show's Amazon wish list, or as of late, we've gotten a couple of donations to the show through my CashApp, which is both of which are links that you can find in the description. I cannot thank you guys enough for any of the generosity, any of the thoughtfulness that comes out of cyberspace toward the show. So thank you again. You know who you are, and I hope that we get to keep continuing making cool stuff and deliver all this fun information. Speaking of fun information, let's talk about the week in Bryan. It has been a good week overall. Gaming wise, last night had a couple of friends over, where we played a rousing couple of games. We played the Great British Bake Off game, which is a super fun game. Especially you throw a couple cocktails in the players, and it gets crazy, it gets loud. But it's actually it's by Ravensburger Games. It's a gorgeous game. Like, it's actually very well thought out. They did a really good job putting together. From a designer standpoint, it's like, man, this is so simple, and it matches the show. Like, it actually does kind of follow through with what the show is about. It's a great game. I can't recommend it enough. No, not a sponsor. Ravensburger's not a sponsor. But I just really love their product, and I do hope, if there is one, I'm not going to call it a failing. I'm going to call it a momentary short-sightedness, is that there is a very limited number of recipes in the main box, and I hope that they put out like expansion packs in the future with additional recipe cards. Only because I don't want to say you get tired of building the same things, but we've played it a couple of times now, and we already had one of our weeks double up, and yes, it's still random, yes, it's still hectic, yes, it's still crazy, but I think it'd be cool if they came out with some expansion packs, some more stuff that uses the rye cards, things like that. Yeah, so that's my opinion. We played that. We played Wrong Party from Unstable Games, not a sponsor. Which that's such an adorable little fast game that I love the Unstable guys. I don't know anybody on that team as far as I can tell. I don't know if you can hear that, if my microphone is sensitive enough to pick that up, but so my studio, there's a window right here, that right next to Stephen Amell and Kylo there. And when I moved in, one of the things that I got for like Christmas from my kids that first year is a birdhouse that sticks to the window that has an empty back, because I love animals. I'm very big into wildlife. It fascinates me. I absolutely just am utterly fascinated by wildlife, and this birdhouse, the concept is that because the shine on the window, they think that it's got a back wall, so they come in, they build a nest, and you get to basically sit there and watch. Now, of the 6-7 years that we've lived at this house, I think I've had one bird ever try to build a nest, and the most fascinating thing that has lived in there is a half-formed paper wasp nest. So I got to watch that, and I'm huge into bugs. I don't know if you've ever if I've mentioned that. I took multiple semesters of entomology when I was in college. I love arthropods and insects and arachnids. They fascinate the hell out of me. I actually have a license filed with the Indiana DNR to raise Goliath Hercules beetles. I don't have any because it's an expensive process, and one that my kids kind of sort of shied away from because the tank that I would be using to breed them would be basically right outside their doors. So it might be something I have to wait a few years before I actually get into. But either way, I'm really, really, I'm very, very interested in that kind of thing. And so when the wasps moved in, I thought it was super fun. I would just open the window and watch the wasps do their nesting. Which is, of course, weird. It's like, oh, everyone's like, wasps, murder bees. But they were fascinating to me. They're ingenious little engines of life. But I digress. There is a sparrow that is moving in to that box. That's what. Long story short, not so much. But I thought you might have been hearing the sparrow because he was very loud a second ago. All right. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, games. So yeah, we played Wrong Party from Unstable Games. Again, I love the Unstable Games guys. We have another game that just came out through Kickstarter from them called Casting Shadows. We have not learned to play it yet. I will give you the lowdown when I can. But they're just really cool. If there's a company, so Unstable Games, they make Unstable Unicorns. Llamas Unleashed, Wrong Party, the Tic-Tac-Toe Duel. They got two versions of it now. Not Dinosaur Disaster. Happy Little Dinosaurs. And then Here to Slay is a really, really good one. But so it's a really cool. I like their company. They're the ones that do all the T-Turtle T-shirts. Like it's the same artist. I think they're owned by the same people. But overall, it is as a game company, they make great little games, but they've sort of created this sort of world for themselves. This kind of fun, cutesy animal D&D fantasy universe, and they have rules that they stick by. It's like all their bards are squirrels, all their warriors are wolves, the druids are all deer and elk. It's very, very cool, and I think it would be awesome. Like I really, really kind of wish that they would put together a legitimate, like an unstable fantasy role playing game, where you are playing one of the, you want to be one of the barbarians, you'd be a barbarian. If you want to be one of the kung fu one of the monk pandas, rock and roll. I think that would be super rad. And they've got a host of characters that have named and have, especially in Here to Slay, they've actually got some individual monsters. Like, I really do think that they could do a encapsulated role-playing game book, whether it's like a 5e clone or they come up with their own system or whatever, in the Unstable world. And I think that I would love to be a part of that. T-Turtle, if you're listening, Unstable Games, if you're listening, and you need a designer to build the unstable role-playing game, I mean, it's already even named. It's already even named. You know, call it Unstable Fantasy. You know, oh, so good. Unstable Adventures. Unstable Adventures. Come on. Somebody forward this clip to them and say Bryan wants to build your role playing game. I digress. Yeah, so I played those games. My kiddo has gotten me deeply into the Streets of Rogue, which is a super fun game. Still playing a lot of the Dark Alliance D&D video game on the Xbox. And then last week we got to play. So I mentioned last week that I had 3 back-to-back-to-back D&D games. Only one of them happened. Life got in the way of one of the games where, like, 2 of our players. That game's a digital game. 2 of our players, like, tornadoes came through their neighborhood and knocked out all their power, so they couldn't play. We did end up playing the Waking Realms game. It's the homebrew D&D where I'm the Capoeira Cat Monk, and we got into kind of a gnarly fight. It was somebody. Our DM is having a hard time challenging us properly. I don't mean properly like he's doing a bad job. I mean like we tend to kind of blow through a lot of the challenges, as you do when D&D starts to get higher levels. So he's starting to really sort of test us with some things that are kind of scary. You know, we went up against this like snake-bodied Medusa demon lady, who you know, not only could she petrify people, but she had a ton of spells. I think he's starting to realize that you can't just go, oh, high hit points, high attack value, and that's it, because there's so many different ways of getting around that kind of thing. And saving throws are a good way. I know I don't think I didn't notice, Micah, but a lot of the spells that he gave this character were saving throws that were not dexterity based, because there are like 3 characters in the party that have high dexterity scores and evasion, which means those big gnarly spells that like normally have the caveat of, well, you know, you didn't take 50 damage, but you still take 25. A lot of us don't take any. So he did a lot more constitution-based spells, a lot more intelligence-based spells. So I think that he's definitely adapting to make things pretty hard for us. But we'll see. We're not playing again this week because I've got my my knotted wheel homebrew game, the very miniature heavy game down in Indy. But I want to see where we go with this. It also, at the end of that session, fighting the nasty Medusa snake thing, turned out that the body, like, when we killed it, it blew up in a fireball and then turned to, like, water and sort of splashed onto the ground. It was some kind of, like, high-end simulacrum. So I'm sure there's going to be more gnarly things coming out of that lady. Whether or not she's actually a Medusa chick, or maybe that simulacrum was, I don't know. We'll see. I am intrigued, and that is why we play these games, is to be intrigued, to be entertained, to have the fun, and we did. Yeah, and then that's pretty much all the gaming I did. Did a little playtesting for some Warzone playtesting. Now that I can be a little more open about what we were doing, I played a playtest game with the Brotherhood faction starter that we're going to be showing at the Kickstarter. Technically, people will get a chance to see some of those models at Adepticon, but I had a lot of fun. I lost the playtest game. My dice were not fabulous. I won't say they were bad. I won't say, oh, I lost because of dice. I will say I lost because of specific dice. Like, you know, here's this particular save, armor save. I should easily be able to make this. I should, you know, my character and this particular character gets to ignore, I can still react while pinned. Not a big deal, and that's the one that I throw the 20 on, so he dies. The even with so one of the things that we'll get into further on when we start talking about the game. One of the things that make the Brotherhood special, like super special, is they have a thing called a faith pool. Certain models give them basically dice to add to their faith pool at the beginning of the game, and then that is unlike the rest of the factions, unlike the rest of the game, where there's a lot of if they roll the dice, it's probably going to stay that way. This is the die. The Brotherhood, their characters, the ones, their collective force, the hand of the Cardinal is a very real thing. It is, unlike some games where it's like the spiritual center of the universe is questionable, or is it just a guy, is it that sort of thing. The Cardinal opened up the powers of the arts, opened up magic, miracles basically, and in Warzone Eternal we represent that not only by having, there are models that can do art based things, but the Brotherhood faction as a collective entity. Oh, I have a contractor calling me right now. Please hold. I will be with you in just one moment. The fridge saga continues. You know what? When we get into the personal side of things, I'll talk about that. Apologize for the phone call. Normally I don't take them, but because today is special, I'll get to that. We were talking about Warzone. So yeah, the Brotherhood have certain models will have 1 or 2 points really at max is what they bring to the table as kind of an extra special thing, and that gives the Brotherhood player, or in the case if they're being used as an advisor for another force, it gives the player faith rerolls. Basically, they get to reroll d20s if they don't like them. And that can be extremely important. In that particular playtest, I'm gonna admonish myself real quick. I wasted a couple of my early faith rerolls on just bloodthirsty, I really need to hit this guy right now. And hindsight being what it is, I didn't need to hit that guy. I could have just shot him with, the extra Sacred Warrior could have just taken the shot on the next activation, instead of making sure that this one has to happen. I probably could have saved those for armor saves or particular that interact action that I needed to score the objective that I failed. I probably could have saved it for those, and I didn't. I was like, no, get the bad guys now, and I ended up losing by 4 points. Still a close game. But it was an interesting showing for the Brotherhood boys and girls. Brotherhood boys and girls. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the gaming that I've done. This weekend I've got Knotted Wheel. I've got my wife's Land of Monsters D&D game. I might get another playtest Warzone game in this weekend if one of my playtesters comes over to do so. I'm looking at my calendar, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm like spaced out into I'm checking out the calendar. But there's also a pretty bleeding into the work week in Bryan. There's a very good chance that I'm going to be running. I just finished writing a scenario, a one-shot scenario for Power Rangers. That I can't talk about because it's not done yet, and it's actually tied to some products that are coming out soon. I need to do a timing playtest. I need to do a playtest that basically, because when you run a convention scenario, you normally have roughly a 4 to 5 hour slot. Sometimes they're longer, but most of the time it's 4 to 5 hours. And we want to always make sure that these scenarios, if there is a scene that can be kind of flagged as, if you're running long on time, you don't need this scene. You can kind of skip this. You know, you can hand wave through it. You don't need to get there this way. And I think it'll be okay. I think it's gonna be a good on length. I'm pretty adept at estimating this since I've run several games at conventions and things. But you never know. There's always occasionally something is just a little too hard, and you accidentally make an encounter or a skill based scene that takes a lot longer because dice are bad. So that's what this is. I gotta get that done this weekend. Because next week I put the final like icing on that cake, and then I get to move into a scenario for a different renegade property that I don't know if I'm okay to talk about yet. So I'm not going to. I'm going to just basically say that I got another scenario coming up for another renegade property that I'm really excited about. It'll be a lot of fun to go ahead and write for a new property and a new system. So, bing. Other work-related things. I'm painting like a madman. I've got a ton of demo Adepticon demo figures for Warzone that I need to get painted for Adepticon, and I'm promising. So the people who are listening, for more Warzone information, now that I've started to actually post up some of the pictures of painted figures and things, that will probably happen more often. I will still keep a few things close to the chest because we want some surprises for the Kickstarter. We want some surprises for when people get to Adepticon, and the pictures and the videos and stuff start slinging around. Marketing rule 101: don't give it all away for free. Too early on anyway. And but I will start showing. I think next up. I just primed the Brotherhood after their showing last weekend. I primed the Brotherhood, so I'm probably going to go ahead and paint some of the Brotherhood stuff. So I might be able to show off some of those guys, and I think after them is next on the list is my Imperials. So my Imperial demo figures. So we'll get to see some of that kind of stuff. I'm excited. I know. Some of it comes down to how much time I have to paint based on the rest of the things that are going on. But it's still part of my focus currently. I did get, work-wise, I did get some bad news. The Shadowrun audiobooks that I was recording, there was some technical difficulties and some background noise through where my studio is, and the studio is not soundproofed well enough, and the fan on my computer is really loud. Basically, because I do not have a dedicated soundproof recording system, the files could not be used. Which, it's sad. It sucks. They're still going to make them. Obviously, they're still going to make the audiobooks. But unfortunately, I cannot be the one that records them. I do not have the right setup. Apparently, my voiceover work that I've done in the past, because it's been kind of short stints, single lines, that kind of thing, sound effects and stuff, that has been okay. But long stretches of dialogue, there's too much background noise. So, boo, sad. It is a thing. It is what it is. But it does free me up a little bit of time to dive into my next Shadowrun novel, which is ongoing. I'm officially put some words to the page. I have the plot. I have the characters. I am on it, and I'm excited because I kind of miss putting down pure narrative sometimes. And then, you know, Renegade work. I talked about that. Talked about Warzone. Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much all my work stuff. Waiting to hear back from the Skinny Mini Adventurers Dungeon in a Box guys for my next load of monsters to stat out for them. So that'll be fun. Yeah, I think that's really it. Work. We did work. We did play. We need to do personal. So personal. I have a doctor's appointment today. But it's just a checkup. It's just basically them to let me know what I need to do. Lose weight. Obviously, they're gonna say that, which I'm trying. It stalled out a little bit because money's been tight, and that our low carb diet is an expensive one. So I've been trying to keep up, but we'll see. We'll get back to it. You know, I need to start getting into the gym. It's just I don't have the time. You know, as the only income as the only real income to the house, to the household, it is hard. I have to. I work multiple gigs at a time, and I'm constantly in the studio working on these gigs because we've got bills to pay. There you go. That's how that goes. I mentioned the fridge saga. So I know that I was talking about how the refrigerator, the guy came out, he fixed it, he didn't fix it all the way. We were waiting for them to come out. Grandma. Basically, my refrigerator broke. Repair guy came out. He fixed 90% of it, but broke something else. He was supposed to come back out to fix it. He did not. So my fridge does not have a working ice or water maker currently, but the rest of it is functioning. And they were supposed to call me back, and they didn't. And I played phone tag with them. And now, sometime today, a new repair guy is supposed to come out to fix the thing that the first guy did not fix. Yeah, so that was what that call was. Basically, because of course, anytime that they give you the window of opportunity that they're going to come out, it's an 8-hour window. They might as well just say they'll call you on this day, but they say your window of operations is from 8 o'clock to 5 p.m. and it's like, really? You can't be like they'll call you on Monday. They'll call you on Thursday and let you know. Instead, they give you this window. That's silly. But he was calling me to let me know that we're in the queue, and as soon as he is done with the closest thing to us, he'll call me back and let me know he's on his way. So that's happening sometime today. Yeah. So there you go. And so now, let's go ahead and take a second to introduce what is happening. Today's video. So friends of the channel, friends of me professionally, they are involved in this project, and they pointed to me in this direction and said, you should take a look at this. And I said, not only will I take a look at this, but I would like to talk to the creator. And the name of the game is on Kickstarter right now. It is called Subversion. It is a cyberpunk-esque neo-future society that is very sci-fi fantasy, where you are adventurers kind of fighting to make a better world out of a dystopian one. And it looks really, really cool. The art's neat. I love there's no secret. I love cyberpunk. I love Shadowrun, and this feels very kind of familiar in those areas. It's at Kickstarter right now. It is, by the time I made this video, it has already reached its initial goal, so it's gonna happen. So you should, if you're interested, you should go take a look at it, see if you can give them a pledge. But in the interim, I went ahead and put together some interview questions and had a chance to sit down with Opti, the author and creator of the game. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk to Opti about Subversion. So that was the amazing Kickstarter commercial for Subversion. I thought that would be a nice lead into talking to the amazing creator of Subversion. So you go by Opti.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and give the viewers a chance to find out why and who you are and who is Fragging Unicorns. You're the company involved.
Why I exist or why they call me Opti.
You know what? If we want to get deep, let's get deep. Why why is Opti?
So like the name comes from like it's a it's a weird story, but there used to be an MMO called City of Heroes, if anybody remembers that or played that. And my character in that game was called the Optimist, and then it was a blue-suited hero who flies around smiling all the time. And over time, the people in the guild or the super group, whatever we were part of, everybody just started calling me Opti. And then I just sort of forgot about that. Then I started the Neo Anarchist podcast, which some of you will know is a in-character history of the Shadowrun universe. And I was like, what can I call this dude? Like what's a weird sounding name? And I just thought, you know what, like, let's just make this easy. If I'm going to put as much of myself into this character as I think I'm going to, let's just, like, you know, use one of my old nicknames. So I used that nickname, and then over time, since the podcast went, you know, so well, everybody I knew in the space just started calling me Opti, even though that was a character, right? Like they didn't know my real name, so they just called me Opti. And like I just, you know, I thought, this is cool. I'll lean into this, you know, as a sort of optimistic gentleman that I try to be. Felt right to do that. So that's why they call me. As far as why I exist, I mean, man, isn't that what we're all trying to figure out?
This is a you know, YouTube show about gamers, and now we're getting deep into philosophy.
I mean, I have some theories, but that'll take us far afield from what we're talking about today, I think.
As long as you're not one of those this is all a simulation kind of people, that line makes me crazy.
Nope, that's not me.
Excellent.
I take things much too seriously for all of this to be a simulation.
Exactly. And honestly, if it was a simulation, what does it matter if it's real to us?
Hey, for somebody out there, the person running this simulation on their computer, like, I hope you're getting a lot of enjoyment out of this,
exactly.
You bastard.
I hope there are many snacks eaten and many enjoyable moments laughed at.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about Fragging Unicorns. So this is your company. You started it. You forged it. Forged as in create, not forged as in faked. I just realized that's
you created this paper company that doesn't exist. No, yeah. So I'm the sole owner, at least on paper, because basically everybody else didn't want to have to deal with it. And after having gone through all the process of making a company and having to pay taxes and all that kind of stuff, like, I really understand why they wouldn't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. But we do have a group of people, and it's sort of porous. The leadership of Fragging Unicorns is porous. Like, there's 6 to 10 people at any given time who are really involved. And as we talked pre-show, you know, it's sort of like a garage band where, you know, everybody is putting into it, and they're giving their time and their effort and buying their own instruments and things like that. And then if and when we hit it big, if and when we start to, you know, do gigs that make us money, then everybody benefits. But until then, we're all just sort of like, I haven't made any money. Like, I'll just, you know, put a bunch of time and effort and money into it. Yeah, we're all just sort of giving what we can to make Fragging Unicorns good. Yeah.
Well, and you know, as far as not making any money, you know, the profit margin, a lot of people don't understand that, like, you know, there's a lot goes into that back end before you start, you know, you get out of the black and into the green kind of thing.
Yeah, we made like our previous Kickstarters. The first one was Gangs of the Undercity, which is a miniatures game. We made $60-something thousand on Kickstarter and another 30,000 the backer kit. And that's like, wow, $90,000, like, we're kicking ass or butt or whatever. Sorry. And but what we did that right at the beginning of COVID, right? And the shipping prices went through the roof, and metal
Skyrocketed.
prices went through the roof, and plastic, and the manufacturing and everything just sort of spread out, like time dilated, and the cost of everything went up. We actually ended up losing money on that because we just didn't know what we didn't know going into it. We ended up sort of breaking even with our last one, Misspent Youth, Fall in Love Not Online, which was last year. And this time, we think we've done everything better than the last two times, and we hope to see Subversion have longer shelf life. So we're optimistic about it.
Well, and thankfully, some of the COVID wounds have healed.
Yeah.
We're seeing shipping prices come back down for containers, and it's no longer a 6 months wait for every printer out there. You actually can get some decent turnaround.
Yep.
So I think looking at at the time of this recording, you are almost, was it 300%?
I think we're 330% funded for Subversion.
Yeah, so like you're doing great. The book's gonna happen. The game's gonna happen. Everything's for the people out there, those weirdos out there that don't back something until it is gonna happen. I've talked about this many times. I devoted an entire episode to weird Kickstarter practices.
Okay.
And so like anybody who listens to my show, I don't want to say religiously, but like has watched it for a while. Yeah. They know it's one of my pet peeves is the fact that there are people out there that won't back a Kickstarter because it hasn't funded yet.
Yeah, those are the FOMO people, right? Like
I
don't love it, but they don't want to miss out on it.
I can't sign my name to it until I know that it's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen unless you sign your name to it.
That's right.
So we're already past that.
Cowards.
Yes, Kickstarter cowards. If you're listening and you're one of those people, first off, stop being one of those people, and secondly, you don't have to worry about that now. Subversion's going to happen.
Right.
And so go, follow the link in the description, get over there, take a look, throw them a couple of bucks, be part of the conversation. And then, if you decide that you love it to death and you want to jump in, maybe because of all this great stuff that Opti has to tell you, give them your attention, give them your funds, pay for some unicorns to frag one another.
If you're on the fence, our rules for Subversion are free to download in the second update. So go to the page, download the rules. If you hate them, then don't back us, because we don't want to have to put up with people who hate our stuff. But if you end up loving it, or if you end up thinking like, oh, I like a lot of this, but I could probably make it better, then do that. And then come to our Discord and tell us everything you don't like so we can fix it.
There you go. All right. Well, so I had a couple of pre-created questions that I wanted to make sure that people got we could just sit here and jaw on for the time, but I want to at least cover certain things that hopefully, anybody who's, like you said, people who might be on the fence that they're not sure, let's give them something to talk about.
Cool.
First and foremost, and this is the super open-ended thing, is there's a lot of has been for 30 plus years, the cyberpunk genre, cyberpunk, parts of Rifts, parts of GURPS, Shadowrun, definitely, there's those sorts of animals exist out there. The genre has seen a lot of attention.
Yeah.
What made you want to create Subversion?
So, I mean, at the heart of it, we wanted a role-playing game that would facilitate the kind of stories that we wanted to tell, right? We wanted to speak about the critiques that cyberpunk offered about capitalism and about technology running wild, and about what it means to be human, and addictions and stress and all. Like, cyberpunk does a really great job at critiquing our current world, right? It sort of takes our current world, ramps it up to 11, and says that's what you get if you aren't careful. What cyberpunk has traditionally also done is sort of give into a sort of nihilism about that world, right? Like the characters are super flawed, and in the end, like, they don't win. They just sort of either survive, or they die, or they get, they have awful things happen to them in the process, and they sort of don't recover. And again, it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Most of cyberpunk is. cyberpunk role-playing games have taken this one step further, and a lot of the cyberpunk role-playing games that are out there tend to almost side with the bad guys. So like you end up taking missions from the corporations that are the bad guys. You end up doing their dirty work. Yes, you might be attacking another corporation, but the people benefiting from that, benefiting from your labor, right? Like you get paid $3,000
credits,
new dollars or whatever, right? And then this company that paid you to attack another company is making $3 million or $3 billion off of what you did, right? Like that's capitalism.
And it really leans into that morally gray area that sometimes players have that little mustache twirl moment. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the fact that you are doing not only illegal things most of the time, but also sort of heinous things sometimes. And the fact that you're doing it not so that you can just survive, not so that you can, help out any group of people, but so that you can just get more cyberware or get a bigger gun or whatever. Like the role-playing game aspect to it really sort of pushes the cyberpunk into a weird area. And then so basically we started considering that, and we liked the critiques. We wanted to lean into that, but also we asked ourselves, what would happen if we gave the players a win? What would happen if the players were allowed to be heroes in this world? What would happen if they weren't out for themselves, if they weren't out for the corporations? What if the corporations, were faceless, and the elites were faceless, and the people that really mattered were the people all around you, your friends and your community and the people that you interacted with? So that's where we started. We wanted to tell stories about relationships and community and fighting back and pushing back and subverting the unjust empires around us, and maybe actually even winning and making that the whole point of actually changing your community and having relationships. And what's the price for sort of giving up your values in order to pursue one of your goals, right? Like those are the things that we were interested in pursuing, and we weren't finding that out there in the cyberpunk space. So we did it ourselves. Yeah.
Cool. I was gonna say, I was like, when I reached out and got the press kit for Subversion, there's a lot of there's a lot of like notes of being hopeful, a very hopeful scene of, it's not the grimdark of 40K, it's not the the mega corporations of Shadowrun where you're waiting for the other foot to fall.
Right.
That stuff exists, but like you and you're there actually. Very rarely would anyone ever say, there's a reason why you don't play adventurers or heroes in Shadowrun. Right. You play Shadowrunners because you're doing a thing that sometimes skirts the moral code. And it did feel like the characters in Subversion are like your local heroes. Like they are the kind of grassroots. Grassroots in a sci-fi setting,
right?
But I dug that. I thought that's a really kind of cool lean, especially for those of us that have. I'm gonna sound old and jaded. That we've played it all twice,
right?
The number of games that devolve into I'm literally just I'm doing this for the money. Why would I save the princess if I could just get my gold?
Right. That's exactly what we're trying to address, right? If the game itself makes it feel and make more sense to do bad things, or to not do good. Like if you're confronted with, do you save the princess or do you inherit this castle?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't know. Maybe we inherit the castle, right? Like that's not the sort of choices that we want to give people. Or at very least, if we give people that choice, there's consequences for that choice, as opposed to just simply, you get the castle instead of the princess, right? But your note about grassroots is well taken, because in every city you can still find grass, right, growing through the cracks, right? And that's what we want to sort of be. One of the playtesters described it as cyberpunk in the daytime, or cyberpunk with the full color palette, right? And that's exactly what we're sort of aiming for, right? We want to be that grass, right? That's that life that's still clinging on despite every attempt to sort of get rid of life and to extinguish it. we want to be that little shred of hope that like grows in between.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I think if someone were to just glance through the art, they might not realize that. But if you even just a cursory read of any of the press material or anything, the back of the book blurbs, that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
they'll know right offhand that this is not that kind of game. This game is literally about, you're trying to do, or again, hopefully player no game survives contact untouched with the players, but your narrative is set up to be, we want the characters to be working for a better goal. And that is something that I do agree with you. I think that the other the other cyberpunk style games, they tend to lean so heavily into, well, if you can't beat them, join them.
Right.
There's been Shadowrun adventures and stuff where it's about trying to take down a baddie, but it's almost always
I wrote a lot of them. Yeah.
You're so this is true. There's always that other there's a baddie that you're very much the lesser of two evils, even if you're trying to be heroic.
Right.
I remember,
and that's fine. Let me just be clear. I love that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it has its place.
Another place.
It absolutely has its place.
Yeah.
One of my favorite characters that I played for a long time, I played a homeless street Sam Minotaur named Toro. That he was Casey Jones. He fought with sports equipment, and I threw baseballs and billiard balls and stuff. And when I was building the character, the game master at the time, he was like, all your contacts are homeless people, and I was like, yeah, I'm like, I'm an alleyway fighter, and he was like, yeah, and he's like, all right, so how do you get into Shadowrun? And I was like, I saved homeless folk. Like I ran into this sort of narrative problem of, I really don't know how I would get involved with your guys' story, because unless you like came to find me, and that's what we ended up doing, is basically we're just like, I owe somebody for some BioWare, and they came calling, and now I gotta go do the hard stuff to pay for my stuff. And I think a character like Toro would fit better in Subversion, because it's not about him working for the bad guy, it's him about sticking up for the little guy. And I love that aspect of the game. I think that's a really, really cool, like I said, it's a cool lean. I definitely think that it's a side of the coin that people hadn't thought about, or if they had, it was quickly silenced.
So Toro would fit perfectly, in Subversion. I can imagine his community being also like homeless folk, right? And he would end up doing things on behalf of them, right? Like that would lead the story, as opposed to, some people come from the outside, do this thing, and then like completely disconnected from the people that you're around with most of the time. So I want to know when Toro goes out and does stuff, like what are the other people doing, and like how do they feel about what he did coming back, right? And like what do they talk around, about on the campfire? Like, is that cool? Like, hey, is there any way that you can use that, to sort of help our situation? And oh, hey, we've got this bully that that keeps coming down and wanting to record us fighting each other. What can you do about that, asshole? Right? Like, go, that those are kind of fun stories that we want to tell, right? Community focused.
Absolutely. And I look, like I said, I do look forward to while sadly I cannot bring Toro over to Subversion now that he has become Shadowrun canon. He's appeared in a novel now, so I can't I can't just transplant him. But I do think eventually, when I get a chance to get some of my friends to subvert, so to speak, there may be a Toro Jr. in my future.
Awesome,
because I think he would definitely fit better in that kind of world. Speaking of Subversion, let's talk about the system. It's a D6 based system. Give us the elevator pitch. Like, what makes it cool?
Okay, so the dice system is one of my favorite things about the game. Completely new dice system, and yes, superficially it has similarities to other D6 systems. That's only because it's D6.
Yeah,
But
you can't
with
help
the
that.
the reason was that it's like, hey, we could use any dice. What are we going to use? I already have a bunch of D6s. This is going to be easier to test.
Absolutely.
So basically, the idea is you roll a number of dice equal to the skill you have in a particular thing, right? So if I'm trying to intimidate somebody, right, I'm gonna roll a certain number of dice based on the dice I have in intimidation. And if I have 3 dice, I roll 3. If I have 4 dice, I roll 4, etc. But you keep only the 3 highest dice, right? So no matter how many dice you roll, you will only ever keep the highest 3. Then you will add those together, and that'll give you somewhere between 3 and 18, and that is your result, right? You compare that up against a target number, and if you beat it, you succeed. If you beat it by 5, that's a dynamic success. And if all 3 of your dice are 6s, that is a critical success. Dynamic does twice as much progress or damage, and a critical does 3 times as much damage.
Okay.
What that does is it really makes a nice probability curve. It's actually quite lovely for you math nerds if you like math this out. This is exactly sort of what you would want from a game that emphasizes skill use, right? So if you're rolling just 3, right? If you're sort of mildly competent at something, that's 3 dice. You roll 3 dice, you have a probability from 3 to 18, but you're averaging about 10.5. And the likelihood of you getting a very low roll is pretty high. But for each die you add, right, for each skill rank you go up, the probability, like the range from 3 to 18 stays the same, but the probability of you getting a much better roll keeps going up, right? So that if you're rolling 9 dice, if you're like, super samurai, intimidation dude, then you're going to be rolling a lot of dice, and the probability of you getting 15, 16, 17, 18 is going to happen a lot more than 3 to 10, right? So it's what you would expect if somebody who's super, super good at something is not going to fail 5% of the time at something, no matter what they do, right? And it doesn't really matter what the other person is rolling, right? It's not a sort of opposed dice roll, so things move quickly. But yeah, it provides a really nice probability curve that we've learned to really appreciate.
I was going to ask you when you had said that you take the top 3 dice. I was going to ask what kind of a skill range are you looking at? Like you're not going to see somebody with 15 dice sort of thing.
Right.
Okay.
Right now we've capped it at 9. That just seems reasonable, and we just don't want players sort of chasing. The difference between 9 and 10 statistically is really negligible. So we don't want players to be chasing something that's not going to ultimately benefit them. And yeah, it also, we just appreciate the fact that the target numbers don't just increase into forever, right? So you're never going to actually be coming up against some target number that you're going to have to hit 30 or 40. Like, we like to keep it real tight, and we feel like the dice system we have does that pretty well.
Cool. That's awesome. I dig that. How long has Subversion? I mean, obviously you've got other games that are based in this world.
Yeah.
But how long has Subversion been like in creation, as far as like when did you wake up one day and go, I want to make New Babylon? Like
2019, 2018, maybe. It depends on whether it was just a dream or whether it was something else. But we had talked about doing our own game for a long time, but it was just sort of a dream. It was just always in the background, right? Then we decided to make the company, and I think we decided to make the company because we decided to make the miniatures game, Gangs of the Undercity. And we did that because the Shadowrun miniatures game never materialized, and so we were like, what if we did that? So we made a game that's basically like a Shadowrun minis game, but we sort of thought like, okay, if this is what we're going to do, we obviously can't call it Shadowrun. We obviously can't set it in Seattle. So I started thinking about like what other sort of things might we do, and the idea of Neo Babylon like stuck in my head, and I was like, oh, Babylon's got like a lot of sort of resonance with marginalized communities, right? Like a lot of reggae, a lot of ska, sort of call Babylon the bad guy as a sort of metaphor for evil empire. And then just back in the Roman days, Babylon was a symbol for Rome itself as sort of a coded language. And then, of course, Babylon in the ancient world conquered people and absorbed them. So it had this really cool resonance. And so Neo Babylon sort of brought that sort of cyberpunk element to it, like Neo Tokyo, whatever. So once I started working backwards from there, it sort of flowed pretty well, because I'm a huge like Mesopotamian mythology nerd, and the resonances that it had with like sort of going back in history, instead of saying like, oh, magic returned after a certain while, like Shadowrun's already done that. I'm not going to try to replicate that.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to do that, like we started asking ourselves, like, what if magic had always existed? What would a world look like? What would a cyberpunk world look like in that world where sort of magic was taken for granted? And so we assumed that Babylon had gotten magic, and we sort of fast forwarded that, and that was the sort of essence of it. At that point, before we started doing Gangs of the Undercity, I had already started dreaming then about Subversion, or what would become a Subversion, and like what kind of dice would we have, what kind of themes would we have, and that kind of stuff. So it's been brewing for 3 or more years, but really
Awesome.
in earnest the last 2 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's always nice to, I like to, as a creative myself, I like to know kind of where things pop up for other people. I've talked about on the show before that, a lot of times I don't sleep well. I have issues with my imagination in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And so it'll be a thing where I might wake up at 3:30 in the morning and spend 45 minutes writing notes into my phone because something hit me and I went, well, no, I'm not sleeping tonight, I'm done. And I always wonder, that's like my one of my go-tos is always ask, where'd it come from? Like, did it I've had people, ask them about a particular game, something they've created or whatever, and they go, well, I was watching this movie and I just thought that was really cool. And it's like, well, all right, that's not the answer I thought I was going to get, but yeah. So it's nice to hear that this did have deeper roots. That you've got your background in Mesopotamian history. I love what so. I've mentioned before that when I was my early Bryan, way back in the Wayback Machine when dinosaurs ruled the earth, I was not a Shadowrun fan. I started out I was heavy into like D&D and Rifts, and but Shadowrun itself, I was like, why would you? And I loved cyberpunk, like huge old black cover book was my bag. Meat versus Machine, that was my
thing.
Yeah. And one of my friends was really big into Shadowrun and was doing the whole, you should play it. I was like, why would you mix your chocolate in my peanut butter? Get your get your magic out of my sci-fi.
Yeah.
And, your game's got dragons. And it hit me way later on, like I kind of started reading things, getting a little more into the fiction behind it. It was like, all right, okay, maybe the awakening is kind of cool. And so it is. I love the concept that in your world, where Shadowrun takes place in our world.
Yeah,
it just something weird happens. I like that yours is something weird happened. Like,
yes,
this is an alternate history, but fast forward many thousand years.
Yeah,
I dig that. That's cool. That magic's always been a thing. There's a risk not for the youngsters show that's it's out of England. It is on Hulu, I think, called Extraordinary. That is fantastic, I might add, but it's about a world where literally every person has a superpower.
Really?
Some of them are absolutely stupid. Like
I haven't heard of this show.
It's great. It's aimed at the blue. It's a lot of blue humor. But like they're like one of the characters, their silly power, or their power is they can like basically change channels on TV and radio at will.
Sure.
And there's some things are silly. Like one guy can turn invisible. All right, that's
Hmm.
cool. That's a good power.
Yeah.
Another guy, all he can do is turn into a cat.
Ha!
Like it's and then there are the flyers and there's all that
Yeah.
normal stuff, but it's because that world, there's a little background element that in several scenes, there's a guy. It took me like 2 or 3 episodes to realize this was happening.
Hmm.
It's basically Uber, but he's a flyer. Like
Okay.
in the background, you see him basically unclipping people like a tandem belt, and like they hand him money and then he flies away. And it hit after 2 or 3 episodes of seeing that in the background. I was like, that guy's an Uber driver, but he's a flyer.
Yeah, he's monetized his
He's
power. Yeah.
monetized his power, and it's that feeling of this has been going on for so long, it has become normal.
It's mundane. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that idea of magic in Neo Babylon.
Yeah.
That if everybody has the ability to cantrip, I've it is a something that before Fifth Ed D&D came out, and Pathfinder did it first, is where cantrips were free, where cantrips just universal cantripping.
Right.
I got on my soapbox one day where I ranted about no Pathfinder game, no Pathfinder society anywhere should have anything decrepit.
Right.
And they're like, why there should be no ruins anywhere?
Because
like,
the mending cantrip.
Because mending cantrip is something that if it exists, nothing should be broken ever.
Right.
And it's one of those things where that feeling, it has since dwindled, because I've been like, all right, you can say magic only has its limits or whatever, but it is one of those things where I'm like, it's that same feeling of, in a society where magic is everywhere, what would you take for granted? What would be, would, if the ability to just snap your fingers and make flame, would lighters and stuff even exist?
So you bring this up, we have made in the world of Neo Babylon and Subversion, we actually have asked that question, because in our world there's plenty of money, there's plenty of resources. Why would anybody ever be hungry?
Yep.
And that's the sort of take that we made, and said, like, magic is a stand-in in Subversion for power and wealth. And so even though people could theoretically access all this magic, the people who have magic and the people who have had magic for a long time, they are actually gatekeeping magic and what you can possibly learn. And so it becomes a metaphor in Subversion for the haves and the have-nots. And so with technology in Subversion is now the sort of factor that's leveling the playing field. And so you'll see a lot of revolutionaries and people who are trying to fight back, they'll be using tech, even if it's sort of lesser tech than what the corporations have. That's still in Subversion, still the thing that is actually allowing them to catch up with the magical haves, right? The magic folk in Subversion are the ones who have great houses and great names that go back, generations and generations. They're the ones who sit on the council, et cetera, et cetera. So all of the sort of noble elites have magic, and everybody on the bottom doesn't, or not everybody, but you have hedge witches and things like that. But yeah, that's the sort of metaphor that we're using, is even though it is ubiquitous, even though you have things that magic would make possible over thousands and thousands of years, it's still not as available, or it's still not as helpful to everybody as you might assume, because it's being controlled by an elite group.
That's really cool, and I'm glad that popped up.
They could mend everything and choose not to,
and they
because
choose
it doesn't
not
benefit
to.
them.
What a bunch of jerks!
Yeah.
All right. So one last thing about Subversion is what is, in your opinion, and now this is the opinion. Here's the op-ed part of things.
Sure.
What is your favorite aspect of your own game?
I love, I've said, like, there's a couple of things I could say, but I think the thing that I will say is I love community building, right? Before you do anything else, well, after you sort of have your session 0 and talk about your expectations and maybe safety stuff and all that kind of stuff. Once you do that, the first thing that you do is create your own community. So the GM and the players all sit around and say, what do we want this community to be? Like, where on the socioeconomic ladder are they going to fall? Like, who are the people? Who are the NPCs? What are the values? And that really sets the tone for the rest of the game, and it allows, when players make their characters after the community has been made as a group, it really helps situate your character in the midst. Like, who would my character be in this community? Is my character somebody who pushes back on community values? Do I embrace community values? Like, it makes your characters feel very fleshed out. It gives you touch points, like, oh, my character would know this NPC or whatever. And I feel like it just really gets you into, if you've never played Subversion before, building a community with your other players would just absolutely put you into it right away, and you know exactly who you are and what you're going to be doing. So yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. That makes me I it falls into the same category of little tidbits I always like to know about the other creatives. Is everyone has their shining moments of, this is what I want to make sure everyone knows, and so I always like to ask that. And then I guess before we let you go and monitor your Kickstarter madness, what do you have any like future plans for Subversion specifically, like future plans down the road, new products and things? And if you want to go ahead and throw in some plugs or anything for future Fragging Unicorn stuff, now is that time.
Well, we have a couple of things on the radar for Subversion in particular. We are definitely planning on supporting it, right? So Subversion is not just a one and done book. We are going to be at Origins and Gen Con and ReaperCon running games and doing adventures, and those adventures are eventually going to be a living campaign that happens, every year. We're going to be releasing splat books and adventures. At least 3 to 4 adventures will be released around the time that the game comes out. So GMs and other people will have stuff available to play right away. You won't have to sort of do it on your own. And we will continue to do that. So Subversion is one of those things that we're going to continue to put our flag in the ground about and say, this is our game. This is what we love. And we're going to continue to put stuff out for it. Other games going on in the background, and I really do mean in the very background, because Subversion is taking all of our bandwidth at the moment. But we do have folks who are familiar with Shadowrun will know Mr. Johnson, or Clifton Lambert, is from the Arcology podcast. He is writing a game for us called Hell Slayers. It's a sort of doom-skinned Morkborg hack. So that'll be releasing on Kickstarter later this year. That's sort of like, again, a side project for him. I have a superheroes game that I'm working on in the background using rules from Misspent Youth. So that will be coming someday. I don't know. I don't want to put a timeline on that one. And then you want to know our process, right? We have just been now talking about a fantasy game set in old Babylon, right? So
cool.
Yeah, in the past of Subversion, and we're sort of kicking around. It was going to be a 5e game, right? Just to sort of, so we didn't have to work so hard. And also so that our Kickstarter could make billions of dollars, because all you got to do on Kickstarter is throw some fancy art and put 5e down at the corner, and you're like, hey, here's $100,000, do what you want. So we were wondering, do we use our custom rules, or do we cash cow it in by not working as hard and throwing 5e on it?
But now you've got your own good system. You'll have a great fan base. By the time this comes around, people are going to want to see that prehistory game. So
that's what our feeling is. We'll probably end up using the Subversion or some sort of Subversion like system with it, so there's continuity. But that's way far down the line. We are just now even just talking about it. So that's the future for us. Awesome. We'll be at the cons. Come visit us at the cons, and that's what it's on our radar for.
So I just found out that there's I think we're sitting at like 90-10 percentage wise that I'm going to end up being at Origins.
Oh, cool.
So I may try to shoehorn my way in and maybe play some Subversion with you guys. That might be fun.
That would be amazing. Yeah, we have 3 different adventures that we're running at Origins this year. So
we are currently talking to Gamma right now about getting a Warzone booth. They offered it to us, and then things got weird, and so now we're working on the specifics. But I think we're gonna make it out there, which means during the daytime hours I'll be slinging minis, but then I'll be looking for stuff to do on the big barn too. So
awesome.
We will stay.
If you can get a table, I will run a game for you.
It's a lot harder these days.
I know.
But either way, I thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy Kickstarter day. I mean, literally, this thing just launched in the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
Or I guess by the time this comes out, 72 hours or close to. This
if it comes out within 72 hours, you can still get the early bird. So.
I know there's a lot of moving parts. You are spinning a lot of plates and juggling a lot of chainsaws. So thank you for coming out.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
For jumping on and talking to people. I hope you viewers out there, please follow the link in the description. Go check out the Fragging Unicorn stuff. Go become part of this process. I plan on it. I won't lie, I had not backed yet. I did actually want to talk to you. I wanted to get a little bit of the 411 before I jumped on, but I will when I'm done recording this and getting the video loaded up. I'll hop over and take care of that myself.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
But no, everything sounds really great, and I foresee if I had a magic 8-ball, which I do not, I'll ask Optimus Prime here. Optimus, what do you think? Raw. He's a big fan. Hopeful as it is.
We share a name.
Oh my Optimus. I didn't even do that on purpose. Oh. See,
you missed it. It was right there. Low hanging fruit.
I would edit that out, but I like looking like an idiot on my own show. So we'll just go with that. So again, thank you very much. And please, everyone out there, pay attention to Subversion. Even if you just go over there and back and throw like what is your minimum backing, $1 or $5?
I don't remember.
Yes. Even if you just throw them a couple of bucks to become part of the conversation, get in the comment section, read the updates. It's worth it. Not to mention, even if you just throw them a couple of bucks, it helps push the algorithm for Kickstarter to get them, keep them on the front page, keep people paying attention to the randos, because it happens. There are people that just literally surf Kickstarter.
Even if you don't back, download the rules. See if you like them.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a look at the rules, and if you've got something you want to maybe pass on to Opti through them, but you don't want to get into the Kickstarter, leave it in the comments on the channel, and I will make sure that that information gets forwarded on. So perfect. Either way, thank you, and
thank you, Brian.
Is there any parting words you want to give to the Tales from a Professional Nerd fans before I hit the little red button that says we're done?
Yes, if you have the opportunity and the money, don't back us. Do something good for somebody else.
That's unbelievably sweet. All right, you guys, again, pay attention to what's going on here. Listen to what the Opti has to say. I'm thumbing the thing, but I think you're probably on the opposite side when it comes to the video.
Even funnier.
Take care of this guy, and you'll see me in a second because I gotta record the rest of the outro of the video. But you will see Opti when you go to his Kickstarter. So thanks again, bud.
Thank you.
And apparently I have a hard time closing my video. Well, how about that? That was pretty cool. I really am, as you could tell at the end of that video, I was very thankful that Opti came out to talk to us. Hopefully you guys will get a chance to take a look at the Fragging Unicorns stuff. Follow the link on the site. Just or as he said at the end, you know, do something nice for somebody else if you don't want to give them their money. I mean, I can't ask for anything better. So until next week, please stay safe. Be careful where you go. Wear a mask if you have to. Get vaccinated. Get boosted. Don't lick any doorknobs. You know, all the normal stuff. And try and leave every room a little happier than when you got there. But most of all, play some games. See you next week.